Good morning. I'm Dr. Charity Flores. I'm the Chief Academic Officer for the Indiana Department of Education. And I'm so excited to welcome all of you to this 10th anniversary conference. I just want to take a moment and give special thanks to Jolly and her team. I know they have been feverishly working on all the planning and different contingencies as we've been working through this week to welcome all of you. So thank you to her and her team. So these conferences offer such a great opportunity to pause and reflect, but as we just saw in that video, it's also a great opportunity for all of you to come together and have time to collaborate as well. I'm so excited to be able to sit in on some of these sessions today. I know there's a great keynote coming up in just a little bit, and we'll be sharing some great information about some innovative practices over the next couple of days. So first, on my drive in this morning, I was also taking some time to reflect, and I was very thankful that so far it's rain and not snow, and I know we're all anxiously anticipating what might change. But the other thing that I was really thinking about this morning is the value in collaboration that I found in my experience with my co-teacher. So in my classroom, I had the opportunity for 3 years to have a co-teaching experience with a special education staff member. And I learned so much as part of that experience. It really allowed a couple of things to occur that, as I reflect, were such a great opportunity for me. First, I had another set of hands, and as a teacher, having the ability to have another adult in your classroom allows you to be able to accommodate so much more as part of that teaching practice. But secondly, that experience with her allowed me to learn so many new and different strategies that weren't already in my toolkit coming into the classroom as an educator. So when you're thinking through and processing the different aspects of this conference over the next 2 days, I would just urge you to think about what new strategies you may be able to integrate, what conversations you can have with people that are sitting next to you that may offer some new strategies that you can take back and use in your classroom. So today I have the opportunity to introduce Dr. Katie Jenner. I have been fortunate over the last year to serve on her executive team, and we have great and exciting tactics and strategies underway at the department to really foster opportunities for all of our students in Indiana. So I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Katie Jenner.
Good morning. So I echo what Dr. Flores said, and thank you, Charity, for the introduction. Jolly Pearson, I can't see because of the light, but thank you, there you are. Thank you for all you have done to make this conference possible, but also all you do every day to support special education and our students and our educators. We so appreciate you and your team. I want to start with a story. It's not a professional educator story, but it's really connects back to you. Last night going to bed, watching the forecast like you were, I imagined coming in here expecting 500 and maybe saying 20. We've definitely surpassed that. But what kept going through my mind is a story my dad, or something my dad used to always say growing up before my brother and I got in the car, and he'd always say, even if it was just us driving, he'd always say, now don't forget, you have precious cargo, don't forget. And so last night I was really reflecting on all of you being on the road today. Fortunately, the forecast is, I'm gonna knock on wood before I say this, fortunately the forecast looks okay to get us all home. But to me, you are our precious cargo for our state, for me personally, and above all for our kids that we serve. And so I just want to, if I forget to say it at the end of this, please be safe when you drive home today and as we have the ice and the snow expected. How many of you are from the north? Raise your hand. Northern Indiana? You're somewhat used to this, but how many of you are from the south? Oh, a lot. So I'll be on the roads with you, Southern Indiana folks, later today. We're expecting ice. And then what about from Central Indiana? Great. What a good mix of people across the state. Very, very good. So this hits on kind of what I just mentioned about you all being our precious cargo. Every child is one adult away from being a success story. And you know that, and probably when I talk to educators and when I reflect, I can always picture in my mind those kids that if without for you, they might not have the path that they're on. So again, just so appreciate all the work that you continue to do for children. What I want to spend the bulk of the time talking about today is just providing a level set on what our 3 pillars of focus are, as well as our strategies ahead and some tactical examples. If you follow our weekly newsletter, we've outlined a lot of these, or if you've heard me speak at different meetings, whether it's to the superintendents or principals or other teacher conferences, I always like to level set where we are and where we're going. And coming into this role, one thing the governor asked, I'm trying to figure out where to point this to get it to move. Here we go. Maybe, we'll try this way. Say it again. There we go. I'm going to point right at you with your, gotcha. Thank you. Thank you. When coming in, one thing the governor really asked is, he said in education for the past 10 plus years in Indiana, you know, sometimes we have front page headliners where the department is arguing with the State Board of Ed or with the governor or educators arguing with each other. And he said, you know, part of what I challenge you to do and we really need is for educators to work together and come up with one vision forward. So the first year we did a lot of listening. Many of you have been in various listening sessions where we heard what are our key focus areas, what are our key strategies and tactics that despite all the stuff that will forever swirl around, whether it's COVID, whether it's our legislative session, whether it's Russia potentially invading Ukraine, I mean all the things that will always be swirling around. What is our key focus? So these 3 pillars, none of which should shock you, are the 3 pillars that as a team, meaning the department, the state board, you as a team, we're really, really focused on. The first one is all about kids. It's about our students, student learning and opportunity. The second one is about our educators, educator talent, quality, and value. And the third is about the system level, system alignment and capacity. And that's important when we think about state level alignment, but it's also probably just as important at the local level when you think about alignment. And even when you think about how special education aligns with everything or should work hand in hand with everything. So looking specifically at the strategic priorities, and I'm not going to read all of these, don't worry, but I will share this presentation with you later. Jolly, if you want to send it out to everyone so you have it. We set out, here are some key strategy areas, and I'll point out a couple. Of course, we absolutely are going to lean in on early learning. You may have heard that the governor even put early learning back on his agenda, which is really important for us. We know that a child's window of opportunity for learning starts much before kindergarten. And those of us, well, we're all in here, educators working with kids. Every child who has the opportunity prior to has a leg up. And so what can we do to provide quality access to more children? There was an On My Way pre-K study that was just released this past week that Purdue University did, showing the incredible impact of On My Way pre-K. Do any of you have early learning centers in your schools? Raise your hand if you do. Okay, that's fantastic. So that's one question that we have received commonly from superintendents and principals and teachers who want to deploy some of their local ESSER dollars for early learning. What a fantastic way to support students in your district and further expand. But the other thing with early learning that we will see is, as a department, we plan to lean in as well. We are going to be hiring and deploying a division about kindergarten readiness. So we'll be hiring a director of kindergarten readiness to support some of the questions that we're getting from you as you think about starting an early learning center at your school. And of course, our eyes certainly also on the federal dollars that we potentially could see flowing in the early learning space, but a lot of opportunity there. A couple others that I'll hit on when I talk about tactics. Educational fundamentals. I mean, this is no shock to any of us, right? Literacy and STEM, and also bridging pathways for kids. Two others I'll mention, and then I'll go to the next one. Have you heard of the Learning Lab? Diana Smith, who is, she's, I always mention her name. She's really the one behind that, who's leading it on our side, but we have multiple partners partnering with Patton's, I think, even on one coming up in February. So the Learning Lab, if you're not registered for the Learning Lab, just Google IDOE Learning Lab. You'll see it pop up, get a login. Tons of resources on that in a one-stop shop. And I should tell you all, that Learning Lab came from an idea from educators. And I see Dr. Butts down here. It actually started when COVID hit. Several philanthropies wanted to donate some money to support schools, and some Marion County schools circled up, and they started the Learning Lab, and there was a potential need for it to be fully scaled statewide. But I love to tell that story because I think our best ideas come from local success, and then we build up, and that's a prime example. So let me go to the next pillar, and again, we'll share all of this with you. Pillar 2, elevating and supporting Indiana's educators. This is one that, they all keep me up at night. This is one that keeps me up at night for sure. The work that we do as educators, oh man, it's incredible. We could not, as a society, exist without the work that you're leading and without the support that you're giving kids, and bigger than that, without the love that you're giving to kids. And we have to do everything we can to continue to elevate our profession. And there's always, again, going to be stuff that swirls. We talked about this right before this, but everything we can do as educators to celebrate and lift up our profession, we'll keep on doing. And I think one of the examples is probably coming in the tactics, so I'll share that with you as we move forward as well. Pillar 3, Strategic priorities related to system, so aligned, effective, efficient support, doing everything we can to align our state data and available resources. Financially, more on that to come as I talk some tactics. And then also making sure our schools have support for real-time solutions and really thinking through how we might best serve kids, real-time solutions. Here are some specific on the tactics. Literacy initiatives. Dr. Flores and the academic team have recently, and they've told me not to talk about, we have an RFP out, request for proposal out in our state on the literacy and STEM front, essentially to better support us as educators. We had a lot of comments from teachers at different levels that said, acknowledged, we see that our state average is 81% of our students can read by the end of third grade. We want to do more to support, and so we'll be deploying some work around the science of reading to really target. And it's opt-in. I want to hit that big time. I'm a big believer in local leadership and local teachers believing in something. That's the only way it can happen, ever. And so it's an opt-in. It's an option for you where coaches in science of reading will be deployed specifically to some schools who have struggled in this area. And then there will also be some additional opt-in spots for some others. We're getting pinged on that a lot. I'm getting personal texts. Yesterday I got a couple from superintendents in different parts of our state who were interested, but I want that to be on your radar as well. STEM is another common conversation that we heard from people. How many of you are in STEM certified schools? Okay, a few are. We had a lot of questions about, we know the value of inquiry-based learning and project-based learning, and especially if you've ever seen a special education student in some of these hands-on project-based learning courses. I mean, they light up many times in settings like this. And we had a lot of questions about the desire for support in this area. So that's again a part of the RFP, and we'll be deploying some supports and coaches around the state. Rethinking school performance measurements. That's part of Pillar 1. I am a total believer that students are so much more than just a single test score. And I think probably many of you are as well. We know that a variety of indicators really inform what we do day to day, and a variety of indicators really inform the full picture of how schools are performing, how our community supports our schools, et cetera. So we have the opportunity as a state to shift away from our current accountability to more of a dashboard. And we've been leading conversations for the past, 8 months or so, again, some of you were probably part of that, to really hear what are the key indicators of which inform student success in a school. So this, if you want more information on this, I encourage you can Google Indiana GPS dashboard, and it'll pull right up in terms of the indicators we're looking at. We've put so much press out there on this one, so you may already be very familiar with it, but if you're not, I encourage you for sure to look that up. Where we are right now in the process is next week at the State Board of Education, we'll be sharing the most recent update, which is on the data infrastructure and experience. So we've started with the dashboard. So we've started some focus groups just in the month of January. We'll have some more in the month of February on, what, as an educator or even as a parent, when you look at a school performance dashboard, what do you look for? What kind of experience do you want to have when you look at that data? And again, getting away from it just being a single test score, which we know, especially in K-8, we've had for over a decade, but many other indicators are being considered. And by the way, some of these indicators, the department has the data. So we, as a K-12 team, we have that data. Some of the indicators we're going to have to pull from other state agencies. FSSA has all of our early learning data. The Commission for Higher Education collects all of our dual credit data. Department of Workforce Development collects some data pieces. So we'll be pulling other data in from state agencies, but some of the indicators that we heard from you that are valuable, some of the skill building indicators, that students need to leave with knowledge, they also need to leave with skills. Some of those skill building indicators, we'll be working with schools across the state to pilot some different things to determine how best to measure those indicators. So a lot of exciting work in the space of rethinking school performance measurements. The next key area, student and educator well-being. I won't ask this question because it's too personal of a question with this big of a group. I was talking to someone even right before this, Dr. Butts. I think everybody saw us talking, so I will say that that we kind of talked about this a little bit. Just a bit ago, and this is constantly on my mind. In order to best serve kids, we also have to make sure we're taking care of ourselves. And that's really hard to do. It's really hard to do. If you're like me, there are some kids' names and faces that flash in your head when you close your eyes at night. I mean, it's hard to do. But I encourage you, whatever it is that fills your bucket, make sure you're carving out time to take care of yourself. We need you. Again, you are our precious cargo, so really want to hit on that. And then also our students. We know that our student well-being, just like with us as adults, they're facing all of these various tribulations that we're experiencing in different ways too. So anything we can do to continue leaning in and supporting the well-being of our students and our adults in the building. The teacher supply and demand marketplace is part of our educator pillar. And I'm going to go one forward real quick and make sure that I have this slide in here. Let me go back. The teacher supply and demand marketplace, when we came in January, I will tell you, I'm a data nerd. I love to dig in and study data. And so when we were looking at the data around our educator pipeline as a state, and many states are like this, but we were running in a major lag on data, like 2 years behind in terms of what we know about our educator pipeline. And you think about whether if you own a business, you think about if you run a classroom, if you don't have data for 2 years on anything that you're trying to do, it's nearly impossible to make that impact and to deploy those strategies and interventions. And so this is particularly exciting because this is us as a state really leaning in on making sure we have the best educator pipeline in the data in most real time, which includes teacher supply, educator supply, meaning how many are in the pipeline, how many are at Ball State, how many are at Purdue, how many are in other training programs. So what's our supply? And then also what is our real-time demand? You think about what you need right now, and I bet if I asked the question, who needs a special education teacher right now, you'd all shoot your hands up. Yes, I saw one back there. Right? So what's our real-time supply? What's our real-time demand? And is our supply actually getting to schools? If we have 6 biology majors at Purdue, going to teach, right, high school science, that's the hope, they're in our supply. Are those teachers making it to an Indiana classroom? Or are 3 of them recruited by a biotech company down the road before they ever make it to a classroom? And then once they make it to a classroom, like us, what is the longitudinal data say in terms of, are they staying? Are we staying? All of that is super, super important data to have in real time so that we can tell our story and make sure that educator pipeline information is as clear as it can be. This will come in iterations and stages. So what I just described is probably the second or third iteration in the full look, but the first iteration is absolutely coming very soon with looking at that data. The other thing that I'll mention in strengthening the teacher pipeline is partnerships. I've mentioned already today at least once, maybe a couple times, I wholeheartedly believe that it's not the state that drives the maximum change. That happens from empowering locals to make the change and then scaling. So these are a few of the partnerships that have been developed. Of course, our team has absolutely been at the table in support. One is a partnership with the department, the University of Indy Center of Excellence in Leadership and Learning, most commonly called CEL. CEL is typically, I think for many of you, if you're a high school teacher or if you have an early college, high school in your community, CEL is very typically behind that early college, high school. But this particular partnership with CEL is to strengthen our special education pipeline. We also have the ISEAL, it streamlines the required coursework for teachers to earn the full special education licensure. But all of this is just an example of many of you who came to the table with us, and I think we had, gosh, all of our special education associations worked together, including our teacher, principals, superintendents association. They all came together to help get this partnership moving. So that is one example of several that I could mention partnership-wise. I mentioned the Learning Lab already. Here's some data to show the growth in that. Again, if you're not registered, please take a look right now. The data chart it looks like it's maybe a little bit hard to see in the back, but you can see the significant upward trend in teachers in Indiana jumping on that. We've actually had inquiries from other states asking us how they can be a part of it too, but we've said pretty frankly, we got to focus on Indiana first. And so this is totally for you, and it's ever evolving and improving, so check that out. The one that was not on here that I also want to mention, there are a variety of tactics, and we tried to pull some key ones that might resonate with you, but the other one I'll mention in the teacher pipeline area, we launched a series called Teachers Who Shape Us, where we've asked some of our most prominent or known people in our state to share a story about how much they value educators, share a story about the educator that impacted them the most. Just last week, we released the video with U.S. Secretary Cardona. Prior to that, Quinn Buckner, if you're an IU basketball fan, or Purdue, or not Purdue actually, I meant to say Pacers. If you're a Purdue fan, you probably didn't like Quinn Buckner, but We'll get some Purdue love on here pretty soon, too. We've also interviewed the governor, Dr. Box. I'll tell you, the one I'm most excited about coming up, just for you to know, is Olympian Lily King, the swimmer who did this to Russia. I know that probably is not appropriate, but I kind of loved that. Don't tweet that, please, that I just did that. But Lily King's interview is coming up pretty soon. Her parents were teachers down in Evansville. Super cool story. And there are others. But that is totally for you, right? Anything that we can do to lift each other up, to try to be the light in this world that we live in, I think we should do. And leaving with Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote, I love this quote. I think it's so appropriate too for where we are and sometimes how it feels working with children. If you can't fly, or if they can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But by all means, keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. There will be distractors, you all. There are right now. There are uncontrollables that are hitting us. God love our General Assembly sometimes, right? Plus COVID, plus some of the other factors. But what you do day to day to impact children, remember back to that quote. Every child needs a person, and each one of you in the room are probably many children's person. You're what keeps them going. You're who shows them love. So let's keep doing the good work. Let's keep moving forward. And I just thank you for your time. Thank you for being here today. And please, please be safe, whether you're going north or south or staying right here. Please be safe getting home, because you are our precious cargo. Thank you very much.